It's time for the Movin the Chains podcast. Your home for high school football coverage in the Palmetto State. Every team, every game, every week. And now your hosts, Kevin Thomas and Jerel Hendricks.
Welcome in to Movin the Chains, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. I'm Kevin Thomas alongside Jerel Hendricks here for our Round 2 Folly Road recap show. Jerel, we talked about it on our spaces on Friday night. You started out the night with a lot of kind of blowouts. We're like, oh, this is going to be, a slow night, whatever. But then the second half, we saw some really tight ball games, saw some upsets. Ended up being a great night of football across the state.
Yeah, man, round 2 delivered for sure. Like you said, there's a few blowouts, some unexpected, but some were expected. But I think like the majority of the contests we saw, pretty competitive, even if they were only competitive maybe for 3 quarters. Still had some great storylines. We still got our Cinderella still going through the playoffs here. I mean, just some epic performances individually and by certain teams. Just a lot of fun football that we're able to see. And let's recap it, man. Let's get into it.
Looking forward to it. If you guys are tuning in for the first time, we appreciate you. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, etc. at Movin Chains, MOVINCHAINS. MovinChains.com is our website, our podcast available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. We do a live preview show on Tuesday nights about 7 o'clock on Facebook and YouTube. We preview all of the week's games. It's a lot of fun. Love to have you guys hop in and comment and ask what's your favorite team, stuff like that. We do a recap show, comes out on Sundays on our podcast platforms. Jerel and I do recapping all of the previous week's games. And then we do our Friday night spaces over on Twitter/X about 10:30, 11 on Fridays. We go live. We run through the scores. We have different fans and commentators and coaches and players hop in, talk about the game they were at. It's a lot of fun as well. Hope you guys would join us for that. Also, we've got our Movin the Chains merch on sale right now. We've got hats, Richardson hats, Yupong hats, all different colors, gray, black, whatever you want. Check that out. Get your hats now. We got toboggan/beanies, light gray, a gray one, a black one. Really good stuff there. Our hoodies, I think that's our most popular product, Jerel. They feel great, super warm. I've worn mine probably 3 or 4 weeks in a row now. We've got a white one, a gray one. They look really good. Love to have you guys support us. Check us out. We've got photos on all of our social media pages of that stuff. You also email mtcgear.sc@gmail.com. Jerel, what's your favorite piece of merch you've got so far from the MTC gang?
It's gotta be the hoodie,
Yeah.
Definitely the hoodie. I'm a big shorts guy, so I'm not wearing pants, unless it's like 40 or under. So hoodie keeps the core warm. Like you said, man, very comfortable. I've been wearing it, like you said, the last 3 weeks as well. So it's definitely been a great tool. But man, I love the hats too. I'm a big hat guy as well. So and then they're like interchangeable, man. So I have like a gray one, have the black one, so you can rock fit. So definitely check out the hats. The Richardson hats are the best hats on the market for sure. So go support us, man. There's really good merchandise. It's quality stuff, and prices are very value. Got Christmas coming up, stuff like that. It's getting cold, like Kev said though. So go ahead and get your merch ASAP.
We would certainly appreciate it. Jerel, let's give a quick shout out to some friends of the program before we break down the ball game that we attended in round 2.
Take your financial game to the next level with Founders Federal Credit Union. Reach your full potential. Relax. Join Founders today. Visit an office near you or relaxjoinfounders.com to apply. Federally insured by NCUA, member qualification required.
Come for the deals and stay for the quality with Folly Row. From polos to Q-zips to hats and more, their moisture wicking, quick drying, and anti-wrinkle apparel is the perfect blend of comfort and fashion for game day. FollyRow.com and at Folly Row on social media. Folly Row, very good polos.
Jerel, John, and I loaded up and headed down to the bank to check out a 5A lower state matchup between White Knoll and Fort Dorchester. Jerel, I was really excited for this game because I know I've been high on White Knoll all year. I think you guys have as well, but we still didn't really know how good they were because we haven't seen them in person. They don't play the toughest non-region record, non-region schedule, I would say. And then their region, obviously Dutch Fork was good, but Lexington and River Bluff, they were probably a little bit down this year. So it's hard to get a real good feel for how good they were. Fort D on the flip side had a couple losses, but they were to Grayson and Somerville and Gaffney. So certainly big teams. We knew they had playmakers there, as they always do. When Just wanted to get our eyes kind of both those teams and looking forward to it. And what ended up being a blowout really kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, same for me. Yeah, it was the same thing, and that's always the good thing is to get to see the teams in person. It's a lot harder, the people who listen to us talk about the teams or you read your paper or whatever it is, until you see them play in person, collectively, it's kind of hard to have the best judge or feel of how their seasons are actually going. And then a team like White Knoll, it's kind of like an up and comer. They've been, playing in that region that's pretty difficult. Obviously, it's headlined by Dutch Fork, who has been, the hegemonic power of South Carolina football here for the last decade. So it's kind of them stepping out of the shadow. So they had that big win, slayed that demon. And just going back to the players, man, we've heard of, Cunningham and Sharp and Ilunga and, Banks and Kimball.
Yeah,
we've heard the names, but we had yet to see them play in person. So, it was cool to see, man, because those guys were flying around the ball and extremely efficient on the offensive side, as you'll see here as we recap this game.
Certainly, Fort Dorchester got the ball first, couldn't get anything going. White Knoll, they struck quickly. Second play from scrimmage, 29-yard touchdown by Tion Fanning, just a ninth grader, Jerel, put the Timberwolves up 7-0, 8:59 left in the first quarter. Fort D, I think, went 3 and out, and that punt just did not go anywhere. And no. White Knoll, they capitalized quickly after that. They come back next possession. They actually pick off Ben Rifford, who started at quarterback. We need to probably mention that as well, Jerel. We knew Fort D had been kind of playing Charles Watson throughout the year, the left-handed quarterback there. I don't know if it was an injury or whatever it was. Rifford played last week for them. Watson sat out. Rifford started this week, did not play well, and got the hook pretty quickly, bringing Watson back out. But, so Rifford throws the interception to Caleb Geronimi. White Knoll takes over at the -45, 8:15 left. They score again quickly, a 43-yard touchdown from Tion Fanning from Austin Cunningham on a double pass. White Knoll goes up 14-0, 6:53 left. They score one more time before the end of the first quarter, a 3-yard TD pass from Landon Sharp to Tyson Cox. They go up 20-0, 2:24 left. That was a score at the end of the first quarter. Fort Dorchester, they do show some life here, Jerel. A 3-yard TD run by Davian Brown gets them down to 20-7, 11:22 left. After that, White Knoll actually does not score, and you feel like Fort D has kind of an option to maybe get back in this ball game here. Can't get anything going. Then White Knoll blocks the punt, falls on to the +26, and that killed all momentum the Patriots had, it felt like.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was really it. And you could see they'd almost gotten to a few. I know they affected that, that first one that didn't go very far, but they definitely saw something. And this is a game where not just the talent showed through, very early, but also like their coaching, their attention to detail, their preparation, because like they were just firing on all cylinders in all three phases of the game. And you could just tell from the beginning that it was going to be a bad night for the Patriots.
After that block punt, we had a 33-yard touchdown pass from Sharp to C.J. Earl. Timberwolves 27-7, 6:12 left. They score again a few minutes later, 15-yarder from Sharp to Evan Henderson, 34-7, 3:50 left. And then one more time for good measure in the first half, Jerel. Earl from Sharp again, 39-yarder, 41-7. Timberwolves lead, a minute 45 left, and that is the score at halftime. The Timberwolves, like you said, firing on all cylinders, Jerel. It was a game where I think that we had both picked White Knoll.
Yes.
But like I said, as we kind of started this, we didn't feel great about it, I guess, because we just didn't know how good they were. We love what Coach Pelham's done there. I mean, this team is undefeated for a reason. They're playing great football. But, man, there's something to be said usually for, having been there before and things like that, which, Fort D had while White Knoll had not. But it certainly did not matter on Friday night, man. The Timberwolves were as impressive a team as I've seen this season, the way they played that first half.
Yeah, for sure. And it goes back to, a lot of these teams – you're in high school football, especially like the known commodities, the programs that have consistently won, but also won in the playoffs. You give them extra, credit. And you have to a lot of these times because they know how to get it done. I think that's the biggest gap I feel like for a lot of the programs that play high school football is, you can have a fantastic season. You can win all 10 games, go 9-1, but the playoffs each week is a season within itself. And so like with White Knoll not having that history that Fort Dorchester does, you kind of, you start second guessing, you start questioning it. But from that opening snap, like there was no guessing this team. Coach Pelham has his team ready to go. These guys are extremely focused. They have talent, like you mentioned. The freshman running back there. That's 2 weeks in a row we've seen freshman playmakers, just dynamic guys that are going to be tearing it up for the next 3 seasons. I was not familiar with the other receiver, Earl. I mean, he was dynamic, for White Knoll, catching those long touchdown passes and getting open. But then on the other side, the 4D side, been through a lot of turmoil. I do give them a lot of credit. You had Coach Smith stepping in an interim role. You had coaches in and out throughout the offseason. Had a successful year, but I would say, down by their standards, especially in this one where it was a non-competitive game. I mean, it was over in that first quarter, and there was, we tried to drum up that momentum, when they finally scored. But like you said, it was squashed pretty quickly.
The Fort Dorchester offensive line had a really tough time on. I felt bad really for Rifford and Watson back there because, Ayunga and Banks and those guys were getting in the face of those two quarterbacks all night long. They had no time at all, just smothered them up where they couldn't set up and really run an offense. Even the run plays with Brown, he was getting stuffed in the backfield almost every play. It felt like, Coach Pelham has done a great job overall, but especially that defense. I mean, the defensive guy has got them flying around certainly, and they've got some big time athletes there on that side of the ball. But then you got to talk about Landon Sharp. I mean, that quarterback was very impressive the way he managed the game. He can obviously sling it, but he's pretty good with his feet too. Saw a couple times where he stepped up, rolled out, and didn't want to run, but found a guy open, later in the play, which was really impressive. I felt like didn't panic at all. Has a great control of that offense. I think he ends up with 5 touchdowns, something like that. Certainly a big night for him, but he looked really, really good. I felt like as well, Jerel.
Yeah, and when you see quarterback, making plays like that at this level, he's just comfortable. He knows what's going to happen. He knows, to keep his eyes up. He knows, different progressions and things like that, and very comfortable with, not only the offense but his playmakers around him. And you could definitely see that confidence. And man, this White Knoll team is solid. I mean, they are stout all 3 phases of the game, and I think they're a legitimate state title contender. Before we had those, question marks, just we hadn't seen them progress. But after watching them Friday, there's no question in my mind that these guys, can make a run to Orangeburg.
For sure. Do want to give a quick shout out to also, I don't think I said the final score. The final score is White Knoll 50-7. Now, not a lot of action in the second half, but the Timberwolves did roll. I want to give a shout out to Coach Smith from Fort Dorchester. I talked to him before the game. Super nice to us. Appreciate him doing that. Jeff Maple over with White Knoll does their stats. They're great to meet him in person. He was really nice to us, showed us the press box, showed us around things like that.
For sure.
Got to talk to Miss Freeman, who put us on the list to get us in the media. That was super nice of her. Coach Pelham as well for helping us out with that stuff. Some great fans we sat around as well, Jerel, who knew about the show, appreciated us being there. That was really cool. Saw some guys on the field pregame as well. We got to talk to who were familiar with us, and it's really cool, man. We really enjoy meeting all you guys at these ball games because just like you guys, we love high school football. That's why we do this. That's that's why y'all tune in. That's why we do the show. We really appreciate that. So always enjoy meeting some fans, of that school each and every week.
Yeah, big shout out specifically Tia Posey. She was sitting beside us, getting into it. She was having a great time, because White Knoll, man, they were killing it. So
hard not to have a great time on Friday.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And we'll just be frank. Yeah, we're only giving you, updates for the first half because we were only there for the first half because it just got out of hand, man. Those Timberwolves, man, they are an extremely good football team, and like I said, legitimate state title contender. But like you said, man, great concessions, great environment. I'd never been over to the bank before. I mean, we've done a few games over in Lexington County now, and the top-notch facilities in the Midlands there. Every time we go to that part of the state, we just get amazed at each school and the resources that they're provided. And obviously, Coach Pelham and the boys are taking advantage because they've got a really, really good football team.
For sure, and certainly look forward to putting out that food review next Friday on our social media pages. The hot dogs we had were really good. Certainly some good scores to look forward to this coming week. But Jerel, once again, White Knoll takes down Fort Dorchester 50-7 in round 2 action. Let's take a look now at our Games League brought to you by Kona.
Yeah, for sure. And that was obviously our first game of the week. And we mentioned it, man. The team that White Knoll, took down to win that region championship is the team that's probably been, like I said, the most dominant in the state. And they show why, because they can win in the playoffs. Even as a 2 seed, they go up to TL Hanna, and that's Dutch Fork, winning that game 31-28. Oh man, the Silver Fox is peaking at the right time. Coach Knotts and his staff, he's been way more upbeat this second half of the season and into the playoffs than he was that first part of the season. And you can see why his team's putting it together. Limiting TL Hanna to 28 points is impressive, because that backfield, again, they have probably 7 guys that carry the rock, and they get it done. A very efficient team. Coach Tone is one of the best in the state. Then to go up to that environment up there in Anderson to win that football game is impressive. But again, that game's 31-28. Kev, what are your thoughts on that big win, that big upset win for Dutch Fork?
And I believe TL Hanna missed a field goal. Was it 27-yarder? You said something like that,
Yeah.
29-yarder late to tie it. You think that's going to be made, but sometimes that just happens. But interested to see more about what happens next week with Dutch Fork. They play Gaffney, of course, but quarterback John Hunt, who'd been playing so well, had to come out of the ball game. Ethan Alfbein, who played a lot earlier in the year when Hunt was out, comes in, has a really nice game. He had 100+ through the air and on the ground, played really well for them. They've got the offense kind of figured out, it feels like. And then defense, I know they had a big fumble return for a touchdown. I think it was Deion Winsley, ran one back like 90 yards, something like that. Huge play there for the Silver Foxes. I saw, Coach Knotts, and saw a little article afterwards. Like he'll kind of tell you after the game how he feels about his team and what should have happened. And he honestly said he felt like they were going to win by a little bit more than they did. That was kind of surprising. Hunt going out could play a part of that, of course, but they're playing great football. I mean, I think that's 3-0 now, lifetime against TL Hanna, the rematch of the 20 and 18 state title games. This one obviously not in the state title, but another big win for the Silver Foxes. Coach Tone's squad, I mean, they are always contenders. They're always there. They'll be back in next year. Katie Patterson, the running back, is back. He had a big game, but he will be back next year for another big season. But the way Dutch Fork's playing, man, this is a high-level matchup that they won on Friday for sure.
Yeah, Dutch Fork, man, you can't say enough about Coach Knotts' staff, man. They've just kind of stuck to their plan, understood that this team was different, didn't really have the star power that they're used to, and able to get it done in different ways. You mentioned Hunt going down, but the luxury or the silver lining in that is Offense played a lot of football for this team, because Hunt was probably out 6 or 7 games, after that week 1 defeat to Colquitt County. So it's going to be a good one. Rematch. Speaking of rematches, these are 2 teams in Dutch Fork and Gaffney who have played, the last 2 years for the Upper State Championship and the State Championship. So we get round 3 of that. I'm sure it's going to be rocking over at the reservation, but we will talk about that more on Tuesday. Kev, moving to our next game, go down to 4A, and that's James Island, pulling away from Hartsville, 45-21. That James Island defense in the second half was completely suffocating. And the good thing, or I guess the scary thing for their future opponents, is they finally got that offense rolling on Friday night, putting up 45 points against Hartsville.
For sure. And I was really surprised the way they shut them out in the second half. We saw when we were following that game, of course, and the Hartsville team was doing what they usually do, where they break some long ones. Key Mortar's like an 80+ yarder, things like that, where that's what they've kind of known to do. Like they can sustain drives, but with their playmakers, they usually don't. They have somebody who breaks a long one, and they were doing that early. But for James Island and Coach Core to be able to kind of stifle that in the second half, great job by them. Coach Blades on the defensive side did a great job coaching those guys up. And like you said, I mean, Scott and Ravenel and those guys on offense, I mean, if they're firing too on all cylinders, that team is going to be really, really, really tough for anybody to beat. Love what they're doing down there. I was howling Hartsville all year long. I thought they had a chance to win this game. They certainly did not in the second half of that ball game. So hats off to James Island. They continue to roll.
For sure, yeah, that's a big time win. That's a statement win too, because Hartsville, what they scored 70 points last week.
Yes,
you felt like they were finally getting healthy. That's a scary team. They're used to playing difficult teams. Both region and non-region, and like you said, for them to get shut out in that second half is very surprising. Those big plays, though, sometimes they catch up with you. It's a gift and a curse, because you're constantly putting that defense out on the field. But you always want to score, so it's not too bad. But they've got some young guys going. That's the sad part about this year, Kev, man. These kids that we've covered for years, like you have to say goodbye to, like Carmelo and McKendry and things like that. But they'll bring in a new crop, and we'll talk about the 2014 in the offseason. But that's a huge win for the Trojans. But speaking of huge wins, Camden goes between the white walls. They knock off Dillon 35-21. I would say this is probably the most shocking win, even though Camden is a fantastic program. But we got some bigger shockers that we'll talk about later in the show. But they dominate this game. I mean, I think Fling got his early for Dillon, but Camden and Grayson White were, kind of just stole the show on Friday night.
The storyline for Dillon the past couple years has been first half start kind of slow, second half really lean on you, really pull away, really wear you out, honestly, in the second half and just have some big wins. Did not happen on Friday. This game was 21-all second quarter. Camden scores late to go up 7 going into the half there. They shut the Wildcats out in the second half. I mean, just, Dillon had some chances with the ball, couldn't get anything going at all. Super impressive win for the Bulldogs. You mentioned Grayson White doing it on both sides of the field. You don't see a lot of that usually from the quarterback, but he's playing some QB, playing some linebacker / D-line, has a pick 6 in that ball game. Awesome to hear that. I mean, just getting it done. And that's one thing, Jerel, I kind of a tangent here I want to mention. I love it, especially in the playoffs, when you see these athletes playing both sides of the ball. Like, you get a couple guys, of course, at lower levels who do it all year long. But when you start looking at 3A, 4A, 5A, and you see some of these studs getting it done, you'll hear about a guy like, Chase Bird later on at Greer, Avery McFadden, doing it at Hillcrest, of course, Beaumont Weaver at Burns. These guys that really get after both sides of the ball at the high level. I love seeing that, man, and that was a great job from Grayson. I mean, are you kind of with me where that's just really cool to see?
Dude, I am 100% with you on board. Especially like you said, you see it in the lower levels just because you don't have the sheer numbers. But when these guys are at the 3, 4, 5A level, when these teams have full rosters and you can't keep them off the field at all, then we're talking about Grayson White. We're not talking about a running back DB. We're talking about a quarterback and defensive end. So we're talking about just take the titles off. We're talking about football player here, and that's what Grayson White is, man. Just a competitor. He's played since his freshman year. Started there since he was a freshman, played in these big time matchups, not afraid at all. And I don't know, you guys get to the video and see him make that pick 6. I mean, when he's in the end zone, he's strutting between the white walls and letting them know, I can get it done on both ends, man. That is fantastic stuff. It's crazy that Dillon's out of the playoffs this early. You rarely see that. I mean, 2 rounds and done for a Dillon team that's very talented, but also very young. They're going to lose some guys, but that core is pretty young there. But just all the kudos in the world to Coach Renth in that Camden team.
I think we said it on the previous show, this is usually a matchup you see in the lower state final. You don't see this in round 2. And honestly, these two teams were good enough both to get to Orangeburg. I thought they were 2 of the teams that could win it all. Hate to see one of them go out this early, but that's just where the bracket shakes out. But Camden, super impressive win there to just hammer down. I think they outscored them 28-7 after the first quarter, I believe it was. That's just a great performance there for Coach Renth's squad. They're not scared to go on the road anywhere and play, especially with that core. Like you mentioned, White, Mayrant, Hickman, Krim, they've played in big games. They've won big games. They expect to win big games. They weren't intimidated. They played great football on Friday night to come away with the win. And just the way they bounced back after those kind of 2, honestly, bad losses to Gray Collegiate and Hartsville, where they were just non-competitive earlier in the year. To really come back. I know they obviously played tough against Crestwood in that loss, but still, you could tell they were getting better, and I think they're peaking at the right time, it feels like.
Sure. And that's for me. I'll go on a tangent a little bit here. That's what we talked about, the White Knoll game. You see 4T and then you see a White Knoll, and then you're going to lean 4T just because you've seen it. That's the same thing with a Camden here. It's a little bit different with this particular game. But those guys, like you mentioned, they know how to get it done. It's different in the playoffs, and they understand that because they've been there before and they've done it and done it successfully, and they did it again. So 3A playoffs, just an absolute dogfight. We'll talk about some more games later, but that's a big-time win to go on the road and win at Dillon. Kev, our Skeeza game of the week, we got Hilton Head Christian against a white-hot Pinewood Prep team. Hilton Head Christian wins this game comfortably, 42-30. Got a little close, I want to say in the third, fourth quarter there in the second half. But for the most part, Hilton Head Christian just controlled this game, and they're advancing in the playoffs here.
They really did. They came out early, got a lead, and never really looked back. I think, Pinewood Prep, they cut it to 6 late, but they still could never really do anything to get it any tighter than that. That's a great performance there to score 30 plus on that Panthers defense. Super impressive there for the Eagles. They are rolling. I mean, I think we said it on a previous show. This might have been a 3A state title game. You know, Wilson Hall,
Sure.
obviously, they'll be on the other side, and they're playing really good now with their quarterback back, kind of giving them a boost there. But the way the Eagles are playing, man, they're going to be tough to beat next week.
Again, our games of the week presented by Kona. We had White Knoll knocking off Fort Dorchester 50-7. Dutch Fork over TL Hanna 31-28. James Island defeats Hartsville 21. Had Camden over Dillon 35-21. And then our Skeeza game of the week was Hilton Head Christian 42, Pinewood Prep 30. Again, our games of the week presented by Kona. Kev, let's move on to our Pick'em contest games as we do every week. Those are presented by our great friends at Hanna Engineering. And we'll start off with the bang here. We'll just go to probably the biggest one of the bunch that we had here, and that's Hillcrest and Burns. Our game got done so early that we were able to catch overtime and a little bit of the fourth quarter of this one. But Hillcrest comes out victorious, gets their get back over the Burns team that, you know, had been there in the top two all year in 5A, winning 27-24. You're going to talk about a hell of a performance by Mr. Football finalist Avery McFadden, I'm sure.
Just an awesome game for the Rams all around. You mentioned Avery McFadden. He catches a touchdown, he rushes for a touchdown, and he throws a touchdown in a playoff game, man. That's a pretty big-time performance right there. Obviously, he's a Mr. Football finalist. I mean, and he certainly deserves it. That's a huge performance for them. I do want to shout out as well Caleb Sutton, the quarterback that we didn't know if he was going to play or not. He'd been out for 2 weeks. He comes back, has a huge game. I think 200 plus through the air. 250 through the air, threw a touchdown. No picks was the big part for him, I felt like, too, especially. The Rams O-line did a great job giving him time all night because he's still a little bit banged up. He's not at full strength. They did a great job blocking for him. Thomas Stanley, another solid night on the ground for them. But, you know, McFadden is a story there. And then defensively, holding a pretty good Burns team to 24. Super solid performance. Just hats off to Coach Swigert and the crew there, you know, having the perseverance. They were down 14 early in this third quarter, come back, tie that ball game up, send it overtime, and then, you know, they force a missed kick, and they hit one. Grudco drills one to win it, man. Can't say enough about what that Rams team did coming back and getting that big win.
Most definitely, man. And you see, like from last year, it was, you know, such a letdown for them to lose. You know, they were the 1 seed, and, you know, they had home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And for them to go out in the first round, you know, kind of avenge that loss. I know it's different coaching, different staff there. But I want to give a shout to the kids, you know, for having that perseverance. You know, a lot of those kids are kids that played last year, so they had that bad taste in their mouth, and they're able to get the job done. I always like it, you know, it's either 60 minutes or 48 minutes here or however long it takes. And they were able to persevere and do that. I want to give a shout out to Coach Swigert. We talked to him in the off season, you know, coming from, you know, his expansive experience in football. And you got to think, man, that paid off here. You got him as a former college OC. He's like, my best player is Avery McFadden. I'm going to get him touchdowns in every single way. I'm going to get the ball in his hand to make plays for us. And he was able to do so. And on the Burns side, man, you just have to think like disappointed. Like you got to think over in Duncan. They got to be disappointed because this team had a shot. You know, you had the emergence of the freshman running back there. Obviously, Weaver, Bomar, and that defense, especially, you know, the way that they had played all year. We talked about it last week. I was worried about the quarterback play, and I think that may have been a situation in this game to where, you know, that was maybe a link that they didn't have as tight as the others on the chain there. But just kudos to Hillcrest, that community, that staff, man. They do a fantastic job. And, you know, shout out to Greenville County schools there for sure. That's a big time win for the Rams. You know,
and I think Burns had 3 turnovers, I believe it was, Jerel. I know at least 2 fumbles. I think 3 fumbles. You can't have that in a playoff game.
No.
Yeah, at this time of the year, I mean, if you do that, you're going to get beat because everybody's very, very good. You can't win with that type of stuff. And that team, so many athletes had such a promising season. Their one loss to Chapman back in, I think, week 1. He played great since then. He really played good football the last few weeks, it felt like, once they kind of got healthy. Just a disappointing season for them, honestly. You know, I would have loved to have been at that ball game. Sounded like it was great, back and forth, tons of athletes. I don't know where you go from here if you're Burns, because that's got to upset you, man. You feel like you got a really good chance. You've already beat, you know, you beat Gaffney and you beat Spartanburg, and you've got all the big wins, but then you get in round 2 and you fall at home. It's certainly disappointing, but, you know, just kind of I guess weird how it works out. Last year they go on the road to Hillcrest and beat them by 3. Hillcrest misses a late field goal to tie it. This year you're at home and you guys miss a field goal in overtime and the Rams hit one to win by 3. Just a great performance. Hats off to Coach Schweiger. Hats off to Coach Bennon, the defensive coordinator as well for the Rams. Did a great job there. That's an awesome win, man. Puts him in a great spot now to have a chance to go to the upper state title game. And with Avery McFadden and Sutton and those guys, you can never count them out. They've got a great chance to get there, I feel like.
Yeah, and then with Burns, man, this isn't a team, they'd won all those games in a row since that Chapman game, but they had played with fire a few times, down the stretch. And when you start playing these, you get to this point in the playoffs, everyone's good, for the most part. You have maybe a few that kind of sneak through, but at this point, everyone's good. And a program and a team like Hillcrest is good. And you couldn't really, kind of play those games with them. And maybe a situation too. We'll talk about this a little bit more. Maybe we overinflated that region too, this particular season, and they may not have been as dominant as they have been in years past. And I don't know, just came back to bite them. But again, that game is 27-24 in favor of Hillcrest in overtime. Kev, let's go back. Region 2 opponent, team that finished second in that region, that's Gaffney. They knock off Clover 24-12. It's kind of a slow ball game here, but the Indians just kind of slug through it, able to score timely. Had a great defensive performance, to hold that Clover team to 12 points. The Indians get it done and move on.
Yeah, stop that Blue Eagles 9-game winning streak. I think they forced a couple turnovers as well. Like we just said in that Burns Hillcrest game, can't turn it over this time of year, man. Can't overcome that. Gaffney didn't probably play their best game offensively, but they still, 24 points, solid outing there for them. Big win for them. I do love what Coach Woolbright's building at Clover. That's a great first year for them under him. I think they've got a good chance to be really good here in the next few years. But hats off to Gaffney. I know they're looking forward to next week already. It'll be a big game for them, but big win for Coach Jones' squad.
Yeah, we'll talk more Gaffney Indians football on Tuesday for sure. But like you said, Coach Woolbright, I feel like they had that foundation laid last year with Coach Lane, leaving to go to Westside. He slides in there, and I think he's going to be at Clover for a long time, and I think they're going to be very good for a long time. Winning the region their first year as a staff there is very impressive. So probably not the ending that they wanted, but I think they've got a bright future. And Kev, we'll talk about a team that's getting it done right now, and they've gotten it done all season. That's Midland Valley. They knock off South Point 24-17. Again, Midland Valley's had past success, but their recent history has not been the best. But they continue their winning ways in this game, knocking off a known powerhouse in South Point 24-17. Huge game again by Trey Dunbar.
Every week it feels like Jerel. I think he scored a 71-yarder late to win that ball game. They were up in that one. South Point scores, take a 17-16 lead, and then Dunbar breaks that late long touchdown run there. You got to give credit to Coach Chapman. He's just got those guys believing. Like you said, Jerel, they got this program turned around. Like, nobody thought they'd win the region. Nobody thought they'd be 10-0. Nobody thought they'd be 2 rounds deep in the playoffs. Like, even going into the game this week, a lot of folks thought South Point was going to beat them just based off of, name and historical factors there. Midland Valley said, screw that. We're a better football team. Let's go win this thing. And, awesome to see what he's done there and the way that culture has changed. That's a huge win there for the Mustangs, playing great football. Trey Dunbar, what else do you say? He's one of the best players in the state. Should be Mr. Football finalist if it was up to me, but I'm not, on the committee. But he's an absolute stud.
Most definitely. You can't say enough about that kid. And that's all he's done. All he's done in his career of football is win. And he continues doing so, man. Just like you said, hats off to Coach Chap and then that team. And then South Point, again, another team that's played well historically, made these runs historically. Their season ends probably a lot earlier than they thought it would. But I think, they lost to the better team. I think you've seen both teams play. And I think Midland Valley is the better team at the moment.
I think the problem for South Point, and it's a problem all year long, is the offense. Like, the defense had some guys could fly around, make plays, but they could not really score. Like, in their losses, they just didn't put up the points. You look at this Midland Valley team. 2 weeks ago, North Augusta scores 40 on them. And last week, Easley team scores 21. I think in the first half, Midland Valley puts up 17 for the full game. It's not going to win you many football games this time of year, for sure. They couldn't get it figured out if they wanted to run the ball, throw the ball, what it was. That offense for the Stallions never got rolling, but we know they'll be back next year. They've always got talent, of course, always going to be a force, but just did not have the best version of South Point this year for sure.
Mustangs over the Stallions, 24-17. Next one, non-competitive game. We got a couple of these in a row. In 3A, Chester knocks off Chapman, 58-24. It's a Chapman team that we saw 2 weeks ago, and they're flying high, getting it done on offense, and they just got dominated. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Chester just out physicals these guys and puts up dang near 60 points on the scoreboard.
This might have been the most surprising game to me all Friday night. I thought Chester was a good football team. They're physical, they're tough. I didn't think it could score this much. I really didn't. And chatting with what they were doing with Coleman Gray and Nah and Scott and those guys was super impressive. I felt like the way they've been on a roll. But just I know they had a couple turnovers early and it kind of got going the wrong way. Hats off to Coach Floyd and the Cyclones. I mean, their run game got going, of course. They did a great job winning this football game. I mean, like you said, Jerel, non-competitive. I mean, you don't see a lot of those at this point in the playoffs, but certainly they put the hammer down on Friday.
Especially on paper, like you would have never guessed this. Then offensively, you would have probably given Chapman the edge. I would have.
I agree.
In this game, it just got their doors blown off. But again, good season. Again, more players they're graduating that we don't get to cover anymore on the Chapman side that we got to see in action. But they'll definitely continue their careers. And I don't know, you just got to give all the kudos in the world to Chester and Coach Floyd, man. They just got it done and they're moving on. Another team that just got it done on Friday, and that's Clinton, man. They knock off Broome 38-7. Coach Fountain has his team believing. Kev, this is a Clinton team. I mean, they've probably faced more adversity in season with injuries and everything going on than anybody else, and they just continue to win these football games. They hold Broome and that high-powered offense. One of the best players in the state, sophomore Jalen McGill. I think they had negative rushing yards in this game. Just got to tip your hat to Coach Campbell and his staff and those players especially for executing that game plan.
-6 rushing yards, Jerel.
-6
for the Centurions, and the problem with them is they can't throw the ball either. So they're
one-dimensional
big
for sure.
Trouble. Yeah, and that's just awesome performance. Hats off to Coach Campbell and the Red Devils. I mean, having a great game plan to stop McGill in that rushing attack with Brackett Brandon as well, who can also move.
Yes,
great job for them offensively. They're playing better and better. They don't have the one stud back like they had last year, Bryson James, or this year with, Jaden Robinson early on, who's putting up big numbers. It's kind of more by committee. And then the quarterback, Tyshawn Richardson, he ran for 2 touchdowns last week, had 100+ through the air, I think 10 for 14, which is, something that we haven't seen before out of Clinton, throwing the ball this much. But they did a great job this year doing that. He did a great job on Friday night doing that. Controlled the game start to finish. Hats off to Coach Fountain and the Red Devils for sure.
You talk about a team and a program embodying the next man up, mantra and philosophy. Nobody's encompassed that more than Clinton this year. And they just continue to execute and get it done. 3A playoffs continue to be a slugfest. They will be as the teams get better and better. And, that's just another one, much like that Chester scoreline. When that came through, I was like, man, I did not see that one coming. I thought this was going to be a highly competitive game. And it was not at all. Clinton just dominated, especially on the defensive side. And our final game was Brooklyn Casey and Philip Simmons. Brooklyn Casey, we actually caught a little bit of this game, caught a little bit of the fourth quarter on the way back up the road. BC wins it 34-14 over Philip Simmons. BC has really just, really turned it on the second half of the year, but specifically that rushing attack that they have.
Yeah, Deshaun Washington, another guy who's playing both ways, linebacker and running back, had 200+ on the ground, several touchdowns on Friday. Another game, they just really kind of controlled it. I mean, they ran the ball. I know they didn't throw a pass second half. They might not have thrown a pass the whole game. I got to check the stats on that. But, they got it going on the ground with Young and Washington. And then defensively, shutting down a high-powered Philip Simmons team, stopping the run all night long. Great job from Coach Sharpie's squad there. I mean, that was super impressive. I was thinking we were looking at probably a high 20s ball game, both sides.
Yeah.
Not to happen on Friday for sure.
That's another one, man. I got to tip my hat to the defense there, DC and, Coach Sharpie and that team. And, holding that Philip Simmons team to 14 points, that's a team that I'd seen live earlier in the year. And they were really getting it going with those dynamic running backs, quarterback. And then also Troy Stevenson playing both sides, and they only put up 14 in that game. That is a great performance by BC. Great season, though, overall for Phillip Simmons. I know it didn't end the way they wanted to in region, but nonetheless, this is the 6th year that they have played varsity football, and they already are making noise around the state. It's crazy to see where they're going to end up in this next reclass, see if they're going to stay at 3A or move up again, which is wild because that Charleston area is growing so much. But just a good contest and a good result for the BC side.
And like you mentioned, Joe, we probably caught the last 7 or 8 minutes of that ball game. I actually got to talk to Deshaun Washington and Coach Rusty Sharpie after the ball game as well. Great to talk to them. Coach Sharpie was super happy to be there, and appreciative of us being there. He called us the TV guys. I love that, man. He was really animated. I mean, he's a great character for sure. He did a great job. But, Joe, let's put in that interview now. You with Coach Sharpie and myself with Deshaun Washington. We'll enter that here now, and then we'll come back and wrap up our Hannah Engineering Pick'em contest.
Jerel Hendricks here, Coach Sharpie here. Brooklyn Case, they knock off Phillip Simmons 34-14. Coach, you had a big game from your running back, Deshaun Washington. Talk about what he means to his team and how he performed tonight.
Well, Deshaun Washington is just a stud. He plays offense and defense. He's about 5'11", 200 pounds of muscle. I can't figure out why he hadn't got some more offers, but if somebody needs a running back, you better come get it because he's a player.
Phillip Simmons, man, this team has put up points all year. 14 points. How were you able to limit them, and especially that running game, those 2 dynamic backs that they have?
Well, our defensive staff did an excellent job. They are a tremendous team. A lot of that to do. When you got to go on the road in the playoffs, it's tough, playing in a hostile environment, and the strategy was just keep the ball away from them. So hopefully if you can keep the ball away from them and score some points, you make them have to play catch-up mode. And I think, this thing went another quarter, they might have got us, because you could see they were just trying to get it. But, the game doesn't last long enough for the best team to win. Only the team that plays the best. And so for 4 quarters, we got it. So we just feel very fortunate. I tip my hat to Phillip Simmons and their coaching staff. They've done a heck of a job. To just be a program for, 7 years in order to be as good as they are, somebody's doing a good job.
I don't know if you get to look at it, but we do. We've been keeping up all night. Got Crestwood next week. They got a stud quarterback, Javion Martin, a talented football
I know all
team.
about him. I'm on the Shrine Bowl staff, and as soon as I saw him here in the junior Shrine Bowl, it was here. I said, that's our guy. He's got it all. He can run. He can throw. We got a really tough task. So we'll start work here in about 2 hours and see if we can find a way to maybe just hit. You can't stop him, but maybe you can just slow him down a little bit.
Coach Sharpie here. His BC Bearcats win 34-14, round 2 of the South Carolina High School playoffs. Good luck, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you. Look.
Kevin talking with Deshaun Washington in the case, 34-49, big win. Huge game on the ground, man. What led you such a big night on the ground?
Our linemen just getting behind them and going where they're going. That GT, we couldn't stop it.
I love you played both sides of the ball too. I mean, great game from the defense. You holding a very powerful 14 points. What did you guys do so well on that side?
Stop the run. Made them throw it.
Easy enough. You got Crestwood next week. Good football team, good quarterback. Is your team ready to make a deep run in the playoffs?
Yes, sir. We're ready for it. As far as we can go, we're going to take it.
I love it. Deshaun Washington, Brooklyn Case, 31-14, big win tonight. Congrats, man. Thank you. Congrats, buddy.
All right, that was Kevin catching up with dynamic playmaker from Brooklyn Casey, Deshaun Washington, in their big win. Again, our Pick'em contest games are brought to us every week by Hannah Engineering. The first one we had was Hillcrest defeating Burns in overtime 27-24. Had Midland Valley over South Point 24-17. Gaffney defeating Clover 24-12. Chester over Chapman 58-24. Clennon defeats Broome 38-7, and BC over Phillip Simmons 34-14. Kev, let's get into this the rest of the games that we saw across the state and look at our statewide scoreboard. And the first game that we have was a little bit controversial down in the low country in 5A. At Carolina Forest defeating West Ashley 28-21. Looked like West Ashley was going to get in there late to tie this ball game, but the officials had something else to say.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the replay, pretty controversial play. West Ashley's driving, 2 seconds left. They throw a touch. Actually, back up a second. They score a touchdown to get it within 7. They get the onside kick. They drive down, get it to, I don't know, what is that, probably the 20-yard line, Jerel, or so.
Yeah,
they
near the red zone.
Somehow also, I don't agree with the defense Carolina Forest is playing here. You let a guy get one-on-one on the outside with 2 seconds left. Neither here nor there. Anyway, West Ashley throws it up to the receiver. There's some contact between the two. He goes up and catches it for the touchdown. potential game tying touchdown if the extra point goes through. The officials huddle up, talk about it, and after about 30 seconds, then they throw a flag, call offensive pass interference, back it up, and then West actually can't convert, and they lose the ball game. Like, this is a story, Jerel, and I hate to say this because I don't want to be this guy, but I feel like every week we're having referee issues. Like, and it's not just plays. It's literally plays that are deciding games at the end of the football games. It's a hard job. I certainly don't want to do it. And I'm not saying it's the right or wrong call, but you just wish it wouldn't come down to something like this.
Yeah, you never want officials to determine outcomes. And those are the situations that you really hate to see. You see it this week. We saw it firsthand last week in that Greer Indian Land game. Like you said, it's a tough job. It's very difficult. They're losing officials. They're always, we go to these stadiums every week. They're recruiting guys to do it. If you listen to this and you love high school football and you want to make some extra cash, go be an official because they really are in need of some new talent. Hate that. That's a heartbreaking way to lose. Like, it's bad enough when your season comes to an end, but when there's that what if factor or a little bit of controversy around it, that makes it like 20 times worse. But nonetheless, Carolina Forest gets the job done. They win it 28-21. And were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that the issue, is that not really the call, but just the fact that you can't make it in real time. Like, if you're standing right there and you think the guy pushes off, okay, you throw the flag, like, as it happens. You don't all huddle up and then drop a flag. But that makes I mean, if anything, I would say you throw the flag, huddle up, and then pick it up. Like, I don't know how you do it the other way, though. Like, I don't know how you go from not having a flag on the field to talking and then throwing the flag. I can see it going the other way, like, hey, this guy pushed, I thought. The other guy, the back judge say, no, he didn't, to pick it up. You wave it off. You see flags waved off all the time. You don't really see them coming in after the play like that. And I think that's the main issue there. But, that's – you hate to see a season end like that. But for Carolina Forest, though, man, I do want to, not take anything away from those guys. They're playing great football. They've been on quite a roll. They've got a few losses, but the losses are to Somerville, South Florence, Oceanside Collegiate. All three games, they had the ball with the lead in the fourth quarter. Couldn't quite make it happen. They'll get a chance at some revenge this coming week. But Coach Morris has that squad playing great. Khalil Johnson, running back, getting it done. The Panthers team is really solid this year. They've had a great year.
Most definitely. Well, we'll go to the upstate in Greenville County. Stand up again. We got Jerel Man defeating Spartanburg 17-7. Kev, the man defense is really the story in this football game.
2 pick sixes against Spartanburg. Obviously we've been hard on the Vikings offense all year long. We keep saying it. Hey, they cannot score. Well, the problem is this week, Jerel, they couldn't score, and they scored for the other team. You can't have that happen. You hate to see it. Because, Jerel Man, what's the story of those guys been all year? Great offense.
Yeah.
But now in the playoffs, they get 2 picks. I think Keyshawn Henderson, another guy playing both ways, had a big pick six. Yeah. One of those guys for them. Great win for Coach Watson, man. What this means to that program, that's huge there. I do have to shout out, the Viking defense. The Spartanburg gives up, listen to this, man, 91 yards in the ball game. 22 of those were on a fake punt. Jeez. And you lose the game. You lose the game, and you're not even within a score, right? Like,
and 3 points allowed.
Yeah, that's unbelievable there. Hats off to Jerel Man, though. You mentioned Greenville County. We get to see a great rematch between those guys and Hillcrest next week of a game that was fantastic, I think, 2 weeks ago. Can't wait for that one. Love what Coach Watson's doing there. Tons of playmakers on offense and now defense as well, it seems like. So that's off to those guys, man. That's a huge win for the Patriot squad.
Yeah, the story, it's again like kind of like Burns, it's the same similar situation, like with Spartanburg, it's the same thing, and it just never got any better. It just never progressed, and we, they kind of tricked us into thinking that it was, because Spartanburg had really been putting up some points the last couple of weeks, and then here we go again.
Last week, yeah, here
we go again. They throw up 7, and then they give 14. That's the thing. You give 14, to the other team, especially when you have a defensive performance where you give up less than 100 yards of total offense and you lose a football game. I don't even know what to say. And on the road, I assume that game was on the road. So,
should have been a Jerel Man. Yeah.
That should be an easy. But then there's that stat, man. There's a statistic where, if you give up so many defensive scores, you're never going to win the game. So I think when you give up 2, it's like impossible, and we saw that there. But moving on, man. Speaking of great defense, that's Sumter, the Gamecocks. That's what they hang their hat on, and that's what they've done through these first 2 rounds of the playoffs. They knock off Stratford 27-6. Man, the Gamecocks are peaking at the right time as well.
They certainly are. We thought they were going to lose last week to Ashley Ridge. Put the hammer down on those guys. I thought they were going to win this week, and they certainly did. Cam Vance and Peoples, those guys had a big game. Coach Barnes, taking that team on the road down to Stratford, great performance there for those guys. They're playing great. We keep saying it, defense and run game travels. That's what they've got, in boatloads right now. Gamecocks are flying high.
And to close out 5, we had Somerville defeating Berkeley 34-14. Story of this game is, Berkeley losing freshman quarterback Henry Rivers. We hope that he gets healthy. I wish he could have played a full game and see the second, this is a rematch from earlier in the season to see, how much that Berkeley team has truly progressed.
Certainly. I think the game was actually, I think Berkeley may have had the lead when he gets hurt, late hit out of bounds, goes into the concrete wall, breaks both wrists. I think has some kind of spinal issue as well. It's not neurological great, so that's good to know for sure. He should be back next year at full strength, but a heck of a freshman quarterback. He's going to be a stud for the Stags and Coach Lodge. Definitely want to give a shout out to Coach Lodge, what he's done to that program, turned them around, made them, a solid squad this year, not losing at home, winning a playoff game. Great job there for Berkeley. On Somerville side, Yannick Smith, just too much, man. 2 touchdown catches, a touchdown pass. Jaden Cummings lighting it up for those guys. The Green Wave are playing great football for Coach Rafferty. They have been number 1 pretty much all year long, it feels like. Sure. They're certainly deserving, and they continue to play like a number 1 team.
Most definitely. And I want to go back to Berkeley, man. That's a team. I'll go on record here and say, man, if they're not playing in either Columbia or Orangeburg or wherever the high school league decides to play state championship in the next 2 years, I'd be shocked. I think this is a program that has that kind of trajectory, and especially, with Henry Lodge at quarterback, or Henry Rivers. Henry Rivers at quarterback. What he was able to do in his freshman campaign, very impressive stuff. I think that's a team that we're really, really going to have to look out for. But, Kev, let's move on to 4A. And another game, Greenville County. Got Greenville High going under the water tower at Greer. They win this game 24-21. Late field goal seals it for the Red Raiders. Seems like just kind of more of a defensive battle than anything in this particular matchup.
Certainly, I know that last drive, Mazio Bennett has a big run to get him in place there, and then Lang Steck kicks the field goal to win it there for the Red Raiders. Like you said, this team or this game had tons of playmakers both sides of the ball. Daniel Martin, almost 200 yards on the ground for the Yellow Jackets. Chase Bird, a big game on offense, and 2 picks on defense as well for him. Huge game for him. Chris Hall, the quarterback, has been great since he got inserted. He had a big game for them. On the Greenville side, we know what they've got with Bennett and Drummond and all those guys there. They can certainly make it happen. And they made just enough plays, man. Coach Porter's squad, this is why they play that tough non-region schedule, so they're ready for games like this in the playoffs. They weren't scared. They didn't back down. Even though it was a dogfight, they were ready to roll. They come through and hit the big field goal there to win late in the 4th. But great win for Coach Porter. The Red Raiders, we said all year, have tons of talent. It's got to put it together. That was certainly a nice win here in round 2.
Flipping to the lower part of the state in that bracket, a game that was close until it wasn't. That was Irmo and Myrtle Beach. Irmo pulls away late. They have a huge, 4th quarter. They score 55 to Myrtle Beach's 24. Man, Irmo is just playing fantastic, and they have all year.
The 2 guys in the backfield, Jaden Allen Hendricks and AJ Brand, just too big, man. They just wear you down. They just lean on you. Both of them had big games again. It was interesting to see the Irmo defense kind of got tested for the first time, this year. They haven't really had a lot of trouble on that side of the ball. Myrtle Beach was able to do some things through the passing game, which, we have not seen before against Irmo. Because Irmo, if you guys have not seen them play, they're really big up front especially, and they're really physical. Their D-line have been dominating football games all year long. Myrtle Beach's O-line did a good job kind of giving them some time. Goodrow was able to hit some deep passes to Simmons and those guys. Washington had a nice game for them as well. The Myrtle Beach team finally kind of tested them, but still just too much Irmo at the end, man. They won this game. I think Myrtle Beach cut it to 10 maybe there in the 3rd or 4th or something like that. Put the hammer down from that point forward. Yellow Jackets continue to roll. They stay undefeated for Coach Brand. They are a well-oiled machine right now.
Most definitely. Cinderella lives to fight another day, and that's Lancaster. They win 38-20 against Lucy Beckham. I mean, this is a Lucy Beckham defense. It's one of the premier defenses in the state, and for Lancaster to go down there and score 38 points, Kev, they have now won more games in 2 rounds of the playoffs than they did the entire regular season.
That might be the most points Lucy Beckham gave up all season long. I think actually,
so.
I got to look at the record. I'm pretty sure that's right. That's a great win for Coach Surratt. I mean, the Bruins have all the mojo right now. They think they can beat anybody. Like, they're going to need that next week for sure. But, I mean, you can't count them out with what they're doing right now. I mean, this is an awesome story. And what is really neat to me, Jerel, are these 2 games have not been competitive. Like, they have It's not like, oh, they're sneaking by with the last second field goal or whatever.
Dominated.
They beat Ridgeview and now Lucy Beckham by multiple scores, like 2 weeks in a row. Like, they're playing great on the road. They don't care. I mean, I don't know if you guys know geography very well, but going from Lancaster to Lucy Beckham, that's not an easy drive down there to Mount Pleasant. I mean, that's a long time on the bus, man. They don't care. Like, they're playing great football right now. There's got to be something said for playing a tough non-region schedule, playing a tough region schedule as well. Obviously, only 1 win, which, kind of makes you write them off. But these guys are not, they're not scared of playing good football teams. They've been doing it all year long, and they are just coming out on the winning side of it right now, man. I am so happy for that Bruins program. This is such a great story.
And what a chess move. Flip down, we'll take this at large. We'll go play. We'll go play in the lower state. Have a little bit easier time, it looks like. But yeah, that's a great story, man. They live to fight another day. I think it may be coming to an end next week, though. And we'll talk about that on Tuesday. But speaking of that region, Northwestern, these guys, Kev, I mean, don't really need to talk about it. 55-7 over Greenwood. Greenwood, hell of a story. If it wasn't for Lancaster, Greenwood probably would have been the story of round 1. With Pumpkin Chamberlain, stepping in, that big win that they had over North Augusta. But Northwestern has been the class of 4A, and there's some very good teams in 4A, and Northwestern is that good. I mean, second quarter just exploded. Yeah,
they scored like 35 or something like that second quarter. It's like an unreal number, like not even. Hard to fathom how you get to many points in a quarter, but I think they forced 6 turnovers in total. Everybody knows Turbo Richard, Finley Polt, like all those guys on offense. The defense, I've been trying to say this, the defense, I think is just as good. Like, the D-line is great. The linebacker core is good. The secondary got tons of ball hawks everywhere. They are playing great football on both sides of the ball. I mean, I love what Coach Walford's got that squad doing. Greenwood had the starting quarterback back. It didn't matter. They could have put Peyton Manning back there at Jerel. They're not winning that football game. I mean, the Trojans are that good right now. Finley Polt, 3 touchdowns. Slight work for him. It feels like they are just. I mean, they're phenomenal. They really are.
And the team they faced off last year and defending state champions in 4A, that's South Florence. They're like a boa constrictor, Kevin, man. They just choke these opponents out with that stifling defense, and they just get it done on offense, late in these games. They win this game 50-20 over Richland Northeast. Richland Northeast was another big story in round 1, putting up 1,000 yards of total offense. But they ran up against, arguably the best defense in the state in South Florence, and the Bruins get it done. I think that's 27 in a row for those guys.
Cyree Livingston, another big game. I think 3 touchdowns for the Bruins. They've gotten some stuff going. Really, when Jaden Sellers went out, people were kind of worried, especially, but Livingston stepped right in, done a great job, kind of that wildcat spot there, being a dynamic playmaker. He's having a big game after big game for them. Like mentioned, the defense, Jerel, this is a team that Richland Northeast scored, 88 points last week. Hold them to 20. Super impressive, with Harkless and just so many good men and all those guys on that side of the ball. Rhodes, great job for Coach Marlowe's squad.
And I'll go to a sleeper team, and a team we haven't talked much about, and a team that we actually saw a few weeks ago in the rain. That was Westside and York. Westside scores 49 in this to York's 13. Cutter Woods and those guys, man, got those dynamic playmakers. They look like they're getting healthy. Forgotten about running back, but they get it done on the defensive side as well. I mean, Westside is a very, very dangerous team, especially this time of the year.
Certainly. I mean, they've got playmakers. You mentioned Boston, and you got Williams, and you got Richardson and Evans running the ball as well. I mean, and then you got a quarterback that's as good as anybody in the state, the way he can spread the ball around and sling it. I mean, he can move with his feet too. Coach Lane's doing a great job there. The question always with Westside is defense. I mean, that's a great performance this past week, holding, York down pretty well there. They're starting to get figured out a little bit on that side of the ball, it feels like there. and you mentioned 4A, like we don't talk a lot about Westside. We really have not. We probably should talk more about them. You know, they've got one loss. That's to BHP, who's a very good football team, as we know, in 3A. The Rams are rolling. Excited to see how far they can go. But like you said, they've got one of the more prolific offenses, certainly in the state.
Let's go down to 3A and talk about that team you just mentioned, BHP. They beat Pendleton 44-28. This game not as comfortable as most Bears fans would probably think that it would have been. Pendleton, high-flying offense. They put up, 28 points in this game, but BHP is able to get it done. But they got a little bit of some injury concerns, going into round 3.
Yes, I believe both starting running backs went out. Marquise Henderson, the rumor is that it was a concussion. I've not seen that confirmed, so I don't know what their status will be for round 3. But you get your third-string running back. Normally, a defensive end comes in, has a huge game for you guys. Pendleton, they put up some points. They kept it close for a while. Just too much BHP offense, too much ground and pound later on. Coach Black is doing a great job with that squad. I mean, talk about, next man up mentality. You lose your top 2 backs, and these aren't just like run-of-the-mill guys. They're absolute studs. To have your third guy step in with a big game, that's super, super impressive.
Yeah, BHP, they've definitely been a great team all year. Go see them if you are in Anderson County or surrounding areas. They'll be playing that tough Clinton team next week. If you like physical, fast football, that's a game that you need to be at if you are anywhere near the upstate. But moving on to our next game, and if you're in the Midlands, Sumter area, go see this Crestwood team and Javion Martin. They light up the scoreboard again over Beaufort. They win this game 44-0. Must have been a gentleman's agreement or something at halftime, because I think this was the score at half. Man, Crestwood is a team that is very, very good.
Firing on all cylinders, both sides of the ball. I mean, Beaufort has not been known as having the strongest offense this year, but still you shut them out. Like, that's super impressive. And then to come out and score 44 in the first half, Jerel. I mean, that's unreal with Javion Martin and Azarian Yates and Seneca Moore and those guys. For Coach Nelson, what he's done with that program has been really neat to see. I don't see anybody beating them right now. Like, honestly, like they're playing that good of football. It's super impressive.
And that's a team, they're the 1 seed from that region with Camden. And Camden goes to Dillon this week and beats those guys by 2 touchdowns. That's to tell you how good this Crestwood team is. They've beat Sumter this year, who's still playing. They're in a shootout, an absolute shootout with Gray Collegiate, who's still playing. And this Crestwood team is fantastic. Another team we've tried to talk about as much as we can. Still haven't talked about them enough. They are fantastic and just continue to get it done. And we'll move on to Daniel. They knock off Wren 35-21. Daniel's always a team that we don't really get to talk about until this year in, this point of the playoffs, because they just don't play the most competitive schedule. But they're able to get by that Wren team on Friday night.
A little bit closer than I thought it was going to be, honestly.
Sure.
Wren has been pretty one-dimensional, just running the ball, and you felt like with that Daniel will be able to kind of stifle that run game enough to really win pretty handily, which they still did. They won by 2 scores. It wasn't really ever in doubt, but the Lions team, man, they continue to roll, continue to play good. That's probably their first, real test this season.
Sure.
I would say last week they'll get another one this week against Chester, but Coach Fruster's squad, we know they're built for the playoffs, man. They're going to be there at the end. So great win for those guys. And I do want to shout out Coach Freight, that young program there at Wren, what he did this year after kind of the tough start. They played such a tough non-region to finish second in their region and then win a ball game in the playoffs, man. Love to see that for the Golden Hurricanes. They will be a force in the next few years, I feel like.
I think Daniel matches up with Chester. That's a team that's flying high at this moment. That's a game that I saw. I think that was the Upper State Championship 2 years ago. It was a really fun game to watch there. So if you're nearby, go check that one out as well. And we'll close up 3A. Gilbert, they're able to get it done over Hanahan. They win this game 49-35. Speaking of road trips, man, had to go from Gilbert, America over there all the way down to that Charleston area. And but they're able to get it done. Coach Leapart's squad put up 49. And really, that Hanahan team been on top of the world the last few weeks. That's a very good win for those guys.
Huge night on the ground for the Indians there. Trayvon Williamson, the freshman, had, I think, 300 plus, and it had close to 500 overall rushing yards there. Great job for him. We mentioned, Drake Braddock and all those guys, Jalen Jay. Williamson kind of stepped in when Jay got hurt. He's continued to get more playing time. He's done a great job there for that team. They got some big guys up front. You can certainly see how it happens, and that was a big win for the Indians. They continue to roll their lone loss, obviously, to BC a couple weeks ago, but they played pretty good all year long.
Drop it down to 2A. We got Abbeville and Newberry. Big A is able to win this game 41-28. Another one, a little bit closer than I thought it was going to be. But Newberry, that's a very young team, up-and-coming program there under Coach Jeter.
Lewis had and DeMarcus Leach, big games there for the Panthers. You know, they similar to Daniel, we know they're going to be there at the end. Like they're playing good right now. They may not be as good as last year's team. It's hard to say for sure yet. Their one loss was to that West Side squad that we know is really good earlier in the year. Looking forward to these next couple weeks as they, really will get tested here coming down the stretch.
Next game, another scoreline that came through on Friday that I was, kind of shocked to see how lopsided it was, and that was Andrew Jackson over Kingstree, 51-20. Kingstree actually held a early lead in this game, and AJ just really put it on him.
Too much Trey Thompson. I mean, the guy's a stud. He's a big-time playmaker. He had, I think, 2K plus on the ground last year, Jerel. I don't think he's quite got there this year, but one of the better backs in the state. Huge game there for him. Huge season, huge career for him, really, for AJ. Kingstree, kind of the talk of the town last week, is, being a possible sleeper after beating Timberland. Didn't have anything for the Vols on Friday.
And look at this score, Kev. We got Silver Bluff knocking off Fairfield Central 22-21. Big defensive play late in the game gets Coach Bryant's squad into the third round.
Silver Bluff down by 7 late. You get a pick 6 from Georgia Tech commit Jordan Boyd. Takes it into the house. They go for 2 and convert. Awesome decision. Awesome game there for Coach Bryant and Silver Bluff squad. Jaden Fuller, another stud, getting it done on both sides of the ball, running the ball, out of the backfield as well as playing that D-line linebacker spot there. This is a team all year, Drell, we said, played great defense, had a little problem scoring. They got enough tonight, especially when you get 8 out of your defense as well. It gives you a really good shot.
Most definitely. Kudos to Silver Bluff, man. That's a huge win for those guys. They've had an up and down year this year, but in the playoffs, again, these programs, you know how to win, get it done. Fairfield Central, worried about Gray Collegiate, and they are done. Gray Collegiate knocks off Chesney 62-14. The boys are back in state, and they are rolling. This sets up a big-time matchup this coming week.
B.J. Montgomery, big ball game. Tyler Waller, big ball game. Zay Alford, all those guys. I mean, they've got so much talent, Jerel. They're flying high right now.
Hampton County over Andrews, 48-14. Speaking about teams that are flying high, Hampton County, Zion Dobson, these guys, man, they've just been rolling all season.
Mr. Football finalist Zion Dobson, huge night. You'll hear his stats. I think he had 6 touchdowns. Great win for the Hurricanes.
Barnwell and Marion, big upset here. Marion's a team that's been in our top 5 since preseason. And then Barnwell's a team, another one, a lot of turnover there from the coaching standpoint and the talent standpoint, up and down. They go up to Marion, win this game 31-25. Kev, what are your initial, thoughts on this matchup and how Barnwell's able to get this dub?
That's a great win for them. They started off kind of slow. They even lost to, a 1A team, Blackfield Hill, early in the year. Cam Austin had a big season. We knew he was good going into the year. They didn't really have a run game, which kind of worries you. They end up playing Jaquan Peoples back there. He has a really big second half of the season, gets that Warhorses team, rolling. They beat Woodland a couple weeks ago to get that 2 seed in the region. They're playing great football right now. I was talking to Coach Smith and some guys who were at the ball game. Listen to this, Jerel. We talk about how this is a very impressive win. It gets even more impressive when you hear this stuff. The best receiver didn't play all night. The starting running back missed the whole second half. Cam Austin, the quarterback, missed the fourth quarter. They were literally having draw up plays in the dirt pretty much with your third string running back and whatnot. Yeah. And it's just unreal, man. What you're doing to win that ball game. And then you flip it over. What a disappointment for the Swamp Foxes. I mean, a team that's got as much talent as anybody in 2A, especially, even probably classes higher than that. Dynamic playmakers with, Scott and Sanders and Cusack and Edie and Wilson and those guys. To last year get bounced in the first round to Straw, team you dropped 70 on earlier in the season. 2 years ago, I believe you lose to the same Barnwell team at home in round 2. To do it again this year, man, I don't know if it's a mental thing or what now for Marion, but this team is, they're too good to be losing this early in the playoffs. Too much talent, too many athletes there for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure, man. The last couple of days, there's been a lot of what ifs, around Marion and that program there. You hate to see the careers end of like those players that you're talking about, but that is a big time win for Barnwell. It's a Barnwell team, and they had a very upsetting loss in last year's playoffs, and they rally around this year and are able to do the upsetting. So that's a big time win for them. And speaking of big time wins, Oceanside rolls Woodland 49-0. New QB, no problems. These guys just continue to get it done.
Super, super impressive win. You worry about just kind of the middle makeup of the team. You lose your leader, your senior quarterback, the last game of the season. You know that he's done for his career, really. You come into the playoffs, you kind of rotate 2 or 3 guys. Obviously, Virgilio kind of plays some, receiver as well. It's more of kind of a special package for him. But to just lay the hammer down on Woodland like this, super, super nice win. Obviously, we know the Landsharks defense has been great all year, but the offense is looking good too, even without Reidenbach. Coach Wilk's doing a great job so far in the playoffs.
I alluded to it earlier. Strom Thurmond, they knock off Keenan 53-20. Sets up that big-time matchup with Gray next week. But before we get there, man, Strom Thurmond is a team that is stacked. I mean, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They just continue to get it done. Those big-time playmakers out wide, quarterback getting it done, and even the running game. Coach Webb and his team, they're fantastic, Kev.
Keenan actually returned a fumble early in the game, take a lead. And then Strom said that's enough of that. And huge game for Staley, and I think Edmond had 4 touchdown passes. Yeah. They're playing great right now, man. They've been, really unstoppable all year long. Their 2 losses, obviously, to 4A teams, to Midland Valley and North Augusta, which they were in both of those ball games. I mean, they really were. But then in the 2A ranks, they have not even really been tested. Honestly, they beat Silver Bluff pretty handily. They beat Saluda pretty handily. They're playing great right now.
Yeah. Do we tease it before? Do we tease?
Sure. I'll let you lay it out there, man.
Tease it. If you're listening to this, man, check us out. Middle of next week, we'll be catching up with Coach Webb, the head coach of Strom Thurmond. He'll kind of detail his team, the season thus far, a little bit of his career, and his big time matchup next week against Gray Collegiate. So be sure to tune into that. But let's go to 1A and round this thing out. As far as the high school league, got Bamberg Earhart over East Clarendon 41-13. They just continue to play solid football this year.
Huge game from Chanston Crosby. You'll hear about it in a little bit. I think he went off for 400 plus pass yards, something like that. The Red Raiders, they're playing great football. They had that one loss earlier. It was kind of weird to Blackfield Hilda, but they play not Blackfield Hilda, Denmark Olar. They played great since that.
You just want to talk about Blackfield Hilda. They win over Wagner Sally 28-0. It's a big time win for those guys.
The defense, they shut out a Warhawks team that scored, I think, 40 plus last week against C.A. Johnson. Yep. Great performance there. We know about Jaquel Holman running the ball there for Coach Jones' squad. This Blackfield Hilda team's been good all year long. They really have had kind of a weird loss, kind of middle late in the season there, but playing good football overall.
Here come the private schools. Southside Christian knocks off Calhoun County 21-7. Good season for Calhoun County, though.
They had a chance this game, too. I think they missed a field goal. I think they had a turnover inside maybe like the 5 or 10 yard line as well. They were in it. They were hanging around for sure. Not quite enough firepower there, but can't wait to see what Christian Zachary does at the next level. He's been really fun to follow this year in the last couple of years for sure. But it's a good season for them. But then on the flip side, Southside Christian, man, they're rolling. That they took the tough loss to Christchurch a couple weeks ago, but in a really good spot to have a chance to avenge that loss here in a few weeks. But they're playing good football.
Speaking of rolling, don't look now. Coach Hatfield's squad, Christchurch, they knock off McBee 43-21. Big time win for those guys on Friday.
They just can't be stopped right now. Deshaun Reeder has been a stud all year, multiple years now, doing a great job there. Tucker Hendricks, the quarterback's getting better and better. Jackson Rep, 3 touchdown catches, a punt return as well for a touchdown. He's a dynamic playmaker. Cavs are rolling.
Big Cross, not the little one. They knock off Allendale Fairfax 28-18. Cross, man, this is a team. They've kind of just been in the shadows. They've kind of been on the fringe of that top 10 in the media polls and things like that. Never really made it into our poll because they lost that week 0 matchup, but they have really played well most of the season.
They certainly have. The Trojans have gotten it done. That's 2 years in a row. They've been, really a tough 1A program. This game to beat the Allendale Fairfax team that's riding high after the big shutout win over Latta last week, really impressive for that Trojan squad.
Johnsonville, they knock off Lakeview 35-14. Thought this game would be tight, but Malik Shippey and the boys thought otherwise.
Certainly, they are getting hot at the right time as well. Had a couple weird losses earlier this year, but they were rolling right now. Neil Martin, huge game. Obviously, at 1A, you see a lot of guys playing both ways, but when you guys hear his stat line later on, super impressive for him. Obviously, Shippey knows what he's doing there. Lakeview, a young team, couldn't quite win it this week. They'll be certainly really good the next couple of years, but hats off to the Flashes and Coach Cribb turning this thing around.
And then you got Lamar knocking off Carver's Bay 23-20. This is like the epitome of survive and advance. Thought this game would honestly be a blowout.
Certainly, McPhail has a big game for the Silver Foxes. They actually kick a field goal, I think, as time expired or right there at the end of the game to win it. Great job for Coach Burris, having this team rolling to round 3. They're battle tested. We know that they're ready to make a deep run, and that's the kind of games you got to win. You got to make it happen, and they certainly did on Friday.
And to close out 1A, we'll do it with the bomb. St. Joe's knocks off Louisville 7-0, Kev. I've been trying to think of words to describe this game all weekend, and I'm still kind of speechless. I still even reading this score for the 50th time. St. Joe's, no disrespect to them, it's a team though that finished 3rd in that region.
Yep.
And this is a Louisville team that had literally blown out everybody that they had played since Oceanside in week 0.
Very, very surprising. I mean, had not been shut out all year, of course. Only scored 7 against Oceanside, but still they got on the board at least. This week, you kind of worried a little bit because St. Joe's, obviously, we know they're a good football team. They just, run into Southside Christian and Christchurch, which puts them in the kind of that 3 seed line there. You get that. But still, you think if you're a team like Louisville that wants to make a run to the state title, you think you should handle these guys, fairly easily.
Sure.
The way they dominated all year long, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shutouts after last week. I mean, you don't hear much of that, and they're scoring 50, 60, 70 each week as well. Had just been dominating performances, with Grissom and Robinson and, Howes and all those guys. I know Robinson did go out early in this game. That did certainly hurt them, but the defense plays great. You hold St. Joe's to 7, that's fine, but I don't know how you get shut out in that ball game. That surprises me. You feel like you got too much firepower. You at some point just break one or whatever, but disappointing season for the Lions. I mean, I know they were, thinking state title or bust. It is not meant to be this year. They will certainly be good next year. Got a lot of young talent back, but hats off to that St. Joe's program with Coach Goodman there. I mean, that's a huge win. That gives them a chance to avenge their loss to Southside Christian this week. See how that turns out. But that's a great win there for those guys on the road too.
Yeah, big time win. I'm at a loss as far as Louisville's concerned. I had penciled it in, preseason. I'd penciled in August, March, May that they were going to, play Christchurch again. That was upper state in my opinion. And for them to just, there's no other way to say it. They laid an egg, man.
Yeah.
They laid an egg on offense. Just nothing you expect with the amount of playmakers and the talent and the amount of points they've scored this year that they would at least score. They didn't score, Kevin. And that's the most shocking thing to me. If they would have got, just tight game, get beat, but to not score, that's where I'm man, I can't believe it. But we'll talk about some SCSA scores. But that's all I got on that game.
Certainly hard to believe. Down in the SCSA ranks, we had Hammond. They take down Corey Helms' Cardinal Newman squad 33-20. The Skyhawks, we said it, Jerel, I don't think they're quite as good as some of the other teams they've had the past few years. They continue to win. Another team that expects to be there, expects to win. Cardinal Newman, a team that was kind of gunning for them all season long, had 2 chances at them, couldn't get it done. They're certainly building something there. Coach Helms doing a great job. But Coach Wheeler's squad, there's a reason that you win, 6 straight state titles. Going for 7 now next week. They're playing great football. We've got Wilson Hall avenging an earlier loss against Florence Christian. They take down the Eagles 21-7. Quarterback Clark Kinney, 2 quarterback sneak touchdowns, and then I think it was Ben Reynolds. Fake field goal touchdown run there. Yeah, I can't think of his last name. Sorry about that, Ben. That they win this game, 21-7. Quarterback Kinney, with him being back, that's a huge play. We thought he was out for the year. Nope, he comes back, gives him a chance for a 3A state title game next week. We got Bethesda. They continue to roll. They beat a good Northside Christian team 32-6. They stay undefeated on the year. Maybe the game of the night in SCSA, Jerel. Jefferson Davis Academy takes on Richard Wynn 28-23. Great ball game there in the 8-man ranks. Richard Wynn lost a key player early in the game. Couldn't quite score enough later on, but great win there for JDA. This sets up a 3rd matchup with Holly Hill here for the state title. In the 1A ranks, Patrick Henry takes on Dorchester Academy 17-13. Patriots played a great ball game down there. Williamsburg all over Buford 41-6. The Stallions they've been not really tested all year long. They keep defeating everybody pretty handily. I think Coach Boyd's got a great scout for a state title next week. Holly Hill Academy knocks off Warlaw 57-28. Lee Academy, maybe the story of the playoffs in Skeeza here is Lee Academy, Jerel. Big win last week over Clarendon Hall. This week they beat Thomas Hayward 35-19. Coach Rankin's squad is playing great football right now. Deshaun Haddon has been a playmaker for them. They are rolling. The Cavs are. And then Lawrence Manning, 48-20 over Porter-Gaud. I tell you what, that's a Swamp Cat team we hadn't talked a lot about in the 4A ranks. They've been pretty good all year. Don't forget, Jerel, they started the season off with a win over public school Lake City. 10-2 on the year. They lost to Wilson Hall, last second field goal early on. But besides that, they played really good football. Lost to Wilson Hall and Hammond by 14 points, 20-6 in that ball game the whole time. I think Tyler June and the boys for Coach First might have a chance to pull this one off next week, but will be a fun 4A matchup for sure. Well, Jerel, let's take a quick shout out to our friends of the program before we look at our stock up, stock down, our notes from this previous week.
Take your financial game to the next level with Founders Federal Credit Union. Reach your full potential. Relax. Join Founders today. Visit an office near you or relaxjoinfounders.com to apply. Federally insured by NCUA, member qualification required.
Carolina Orthopedic and Neurosurgical Associates, KONA, offers the most advanced training and experience in orthopedic surgery, neurosurgery, sports medicine, and pain management in the upstate. 3 convenient locations in Spartanburg, Duncan, and Greenville. Go to kona.care to learn more.
Come for the deals and stay for the quality with Folly Row. From polos to Q-zips to hats and more, their moisture-wicking, quick-drying, and anti-wrinkle apparel is the perfect blend of comfort and fashion for game day. FollyRow.com and at Folly Row on social media. Folly Row, very good polos.
Some notes from round 2, Jerel. Dutch Fork with their win. That gives them 18 straight road playoff wins. Pretty impressive there for the Silver Foxes. Chester head coach Victor Floyd picks up his 100th career win. Hats off to Coach Floyd there. Bennett Swigert, he becomes the only Hillcrest head coach to win 10 games in his first season. And then how about this one here, Jerel? This is the first time since 2006 where no Spartanburg teams make it to the third round. That's pretty wild there, huh?
Incredible stuff there. Again, Greenville County, stand up. So we'll go from there. But that's some great stats there, some great notes. All right, Kev, let's take a look at our stock up section for this week. And there's going to be a lot. There's a lot of teams that we were very high on. We'll start off here, man. I got 3 in 5A. That's Dutch Fork. Obviously, big-time win going up to Teal Hanna there. Coach Knotts and his squad are playing well. Hillcrest, overtime victory, avenging those demons from last year's early playoff exit. They knock off Burns in overtime. And White Knoll, and just completely rolling that Fort Dorchester team.
JL Man, big winner over Spartanburg, James Island, and then Lancaster. I mean, they continue to roll. Super impressive from those 3 squads.
I got Westside. Just really think that they're playing good football right now. Defense showing up in that last game against York. Brooklyn Casey, we saw the end of that game, just really getting it done on the offensive side, especially in Camden. Quite the win this week, going between the White Walls and knocking off Dillon.
Midland Valley, they continue to roll. Chester and Clinton. Also Crestwood, a team that's just been so impressive all season long, but big win over Beaufort on Friday.
Another one, I got Silver Bluff. Big-time win, taking a defensive touchdown, able to be the difference against Fairfield Central. Barnwell upsetting Marion, man. That is huge for those guys. And look now, got Christ Church in the 1A ranks, man. Their path to the state championship, or at least the appearance, is a lot more easy, it seems, on paper after what happened in round 2.
Got Gilbert, Andrew Jackson, and then Oceanside. Oceanside, what they're doing without their quarterback has been really impressive to me. Great win for Coach Wilkes' squad.
The last is St. Joe's. Big time win over Louisville. I just mentioned them playing Christ Church, but that is a huge win for those guys.
And then from the Skeezer ranks, Wilson Hall, Lee Academy, Patrick Henry, all 3 big wins. All 3 will be playing for a state title this weekend. Can't wait to see how those games shake out. But that's our stock up there, Jerel. Let's take a look now at our playoff performers brought to you by the Georgia Agency. Open enrollment is here. Give them a call at georgiaagency.net. Check them out of whether you're a small business owner, need it for your company, whether you're a seasonal worker, maybe you don't have interest in your company, whatever it is, check them out at georgiaagency.net.
I think next year what we need to do is to get more nominations. We'll just have to say playoff performers like during the week, and maybe we'll just get more stuff. But let's go ahead and give some shine to these guys. We'll start off at the game we're at. These White Knoll players. Quarterback Landon Sharp goes 19 13 for 19 for 184 yards and 5 touchdowns. Tyon Fanning, the freshman phenom there, has 13 carries for 96 yards, a touchdown. Also 2 catches for 46 yards and another touchdown through the air. Got Domenico Banks, the do-it-all performer for them on defense. He had 11 tackles, 2 sacks, and 2 tackles for loss. Lincoln Ayunga from White Knoll as well, 9 tackles, 2 sacks, and 3 tackles for loss. Man, they have that 4D offense in shambles. Zion Dobson at Hampton County goes 28 carries for 288 yards and 6 touchdowns for the Mr. Football finalists. Camden Moore at Williamsburg, 18 carries for 96 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 catches, 80 yards for 2 more touchdowns. So quite the performance for Camden there. Brett Young in that Clinton defense, but he's the headliner. 12 tackles, 4 TFLs, 1 sacks, a pass breakup, and 3 quarterback pressures. As I mentioned, that Red Devil defense led there by Coach Campbell held Broome to -6 rushing yards. That's outstanding when you think about who they were going up against. Trey Segura, another freshman phenom, running back there at Burns, goes 21 for 171 and 2 touchdowns. Grayson White just does it all, Kev. Had a rushing touchdown, 2 passing touchdowns. Also plays defensive end, had a pick 6, basically, to seal that ball game. Jamarian Fling, the do-it-all running back for Dillon, had 3 rushing touchdowns. Chanson Crosby at Bamberg goes 23 for 27 for 416 yards and 3 touchdowns. Quite the performance. Kev, might shed a tear here. So last time I get to read a Drew Spires, stat line, the do-it-all performer from Richard Wynn wraps up his career in another dominating game, had 8 catches for 102 yards, 10 rushes, 54 yards, and a touchdown. Also had a 2-point conversion, and then on defense had 11 tackles. Shout out to Drew. It was awesome keeping up with your career these last few years, and wish you all the best in the future. Hopefully one of these college coaches snags you up because, man, you can do it all, and definitely wanted to stop and give you a shout out. It was a lot of fun keeping up with your career. Got Trayvon Williamson at Gilbert, had 312 yards and 3 touchdowns. Kev, is that another freshman?
Yes, I believe so. By God, a freshman, Jerel.
Another freshman, 312 yards. Man, that is quite the performance. Avery McFadden, another Mr. Football finalist at Hillcrest, 5 catches for 146, a touchdown. Also had a rushing TD and a passing TD. Jackson Rep at Christ Church, wide receiver, has 3 catches for 185 yards and 3 touchdowns. Yeah, that's pretty efficient there. Also had a 50-yard punt return TD. Jackson getting it done. Chase Bird at Greer, fantastic player there, had 6 catches for 87 yards, a touchdown. Also on defense, had 6 tackles for 2 picks and 3 TFLs. They came up just a little bit short in their round 2 game against Greenville. Deshaun Washington at Brooklyn Casey had 28 carries for 214 yards and 4 touchdowns. Neil Martin at Johnsonville had 15 carries for 122, 4 TDs. Listen to this on defense, Kev. 19 tackles, 3 TFLs, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. Quite the game for that young man. Caden Crawford at Clinton, 6 catches for 106, and also was a part of that defense that was flying all over the football field. Josh Merriweather at Strom Thurmond, 10 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 TFLs. DeMarcus Leach at Abbeville, this kid's a stud, had 9 carries for 131, also 3 touchdowns, also had 92 passing yards. So he's just doing it all. He's actually a better defensive player. Wish we had those defensive stats because he is a fantastic young man and great player. Northwestern, that Trojans defense forced 6 turnovers in that game against Greenwood. And we're just talking about the defense. The offense is something special as well. Aaron Brand over at Irmo. AJ had 8. He went 8 for 10 for 184, 3 touchdowns. Also had 128 rushing yards and another touchdown. Their Big Ten win over Myrtle Beach. Yannick Smith from Somerville, 2 touchdown catches and a touchdown pass. Jackson Brunson at Lawrence Manning had 2 rushing touchdowns and a passing touchdown. Cyree Livingston, the do-it-all athlete for South Florence, had 3 touchdowns. Tyree James of Holly Hill had 5 touchdowns. LaDanian Martin from Greer had 24 totes for 194 and another touchdown. Can't wait to see what he does next year in his senior campaign. And Finley Polk had 3 touchdown passes in that game against Greenwood. Kev, these playoff performers, man, they are getting it done.
I mean, huge to see numbers like this in the playoffs, especially we're getting to round 2 where everybody is good. All the talent's good. All the teams are good. Love seeing these guys just absolutely get after it and put up big numbers like this. As always, guys, continue to send us those stats, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, whatever. Give those over to us on Saturday and Sunday if you can. Love to give you guys a shout out. We'll put them in our weekly blog as well. So hopefully continuing to hear more and more playoff performers brought to you by the Georgia ACC in round 3 next week. Continue to send those over to us. Please, please, please do so. Let's give a quick shout out to our sponsors again, Jerel, before we talk about our Folly Row question.
Take your financial game to the next level with Founders Federal Credit Union. Reach your full potential. Relax. Join Founders today. Visit an office near you or relaxjoinfounders.com to apply. Federally insured by NCUA, member qualification required.
The Georgia Agency has been serving the insurance needs of South Carolina for over 40 years. They're a full-line insurance agency concentrated in employee benefits and health insurance with an office in Mullins and Murrells Inlet, but they can help you all across the state. They have clients in Greer, Rock Hill, Columbia, and more, so wherever you are, they can help. Give Bradley, Wayne, Richard, and the crew a call or check them out online at thegeorgiaagency.net. That's thegeorgiaagency.net.
Come for the deals and stay for the quality with Folly Row. From polos to Q-zips to hats and more, their moisture-wicking, quick-drying, and anti-wrinkle apparel is the perfect blend of comfort and fashion for game day. FollyRow.com and at Folly Row on social media. Folly Row. Very good polos.
Our Folly Row question of the week. What team is the biggest surprise so far in the playoffs? And on the flip side, who is the biggest disappointment so far, Jerel? There's a lot of good options here on both sides, but who do you think fits those categories for you?
Ooh. I've been thinking about this, and I still don't have a very good answer, but we'll just go with it. Biggest surprise. Can I go Cinderella, or is that just too much of a low-hanging fruit?
It surprised me. It didn't surprise you?
I got to go with the low-hanging fruit, man. I got to go Lancaster there, man. Just what a season they're putting on. I mean, they go down, like you mentioned it earlier, go down to Lucy Beckham. Lucy Beckham's been one of the most dominant defenses so far this year, put up 38 points. Again, they've won more games in 2 playoff rounds than they did in the regular season. So I'd have to say the Lancaster Bruins are probably my biggest surprise. Biggest disappointment, I'm torn between 2, but I think I'm gonna go with Louisville, man. I can't get over the fact that, they didn't score. I think that's what it is. I think the defense, they did well. I mean, they gave up 7 points. I mean, if you go in every week and you tell a coach or a team, you give up 7, guaranteed, and that's going to be it, you got to think you're going to win that football game 99% of the time. Those offensive numbers, those offensive playmakers those guys have, and just to not score any points, like that is extremely disappointing. I was wholeheartedly in belief that they were going to be facing off against Christ Church again for, the upper state title. And we didn't get that. So I think that's it for me. But I'll ask you the question. Who is your biggest surprise and who is your biggest disappointment so far in the playoffs?
Surprise, like you said, Jerel, could go a lot of different ways. I'm going to go Sumter. I mean, yes. I was pretty confident they were going to lose in round 1. I felt really good about Action Ridge. And they hammered those guys. Was not close at all. And turn around and go down to Stratford and win that game handily as well. Coach Barnes has got that squad playing well. They're always tough in the playoffs. I guess we just kind of forgot that. I don't know. But the Gamecocks looking really good. That's certainly a team that is playing great football right now. The disappointment, that's a little bit of a tougher one for me. You look down at 1A, there's been a couple upsets. You could throw a team like Alada in there maybe if you wanted to. I don't think that's the biggest, surprise necessarily. I'm going to go Marion. I don't know if I expected them to win the state title. I thought they had a good chance to get to the lower state championship round at least. Certainly thought they would get deeper than 2 rounds in the playoffs. To just come out and get beat by a Barnwell team that, even the second half, certainly not at full strength. With all those athletes you've got, that was a pretty big disappointment to me. Didn't see that one coming at all. And if you want to look at another one, Jerel, that I think we've got to mention as well, because we kind of talked about it earlier. I mean, it's Burns.
For sure.
That, it was number 2 in the polls all year pretty much. People expected at least an upper state title game out of that squad. And this is no knock against Hillcrest. Hillcrest is a really good football team. I think that we teased it on the preview show that Hillcrest had a chance to hang around. We just didn't know with the health of Sutton and all that stuff. Didn't know if they'd have enough firepower. I mean, and Burns just couldn't get it done, man. That they couldn't. I think that's another disappointment. And like I said, not taking away from Hillcrest at all.
No.
It's just I think that the Rebels fans would admit as well. Like they thought they were getting deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it is too. I think that's a disappointment because you just look at the sheer talent on that team, and you just look at like how good they are on defense and how opportunistic they were. But when you look at it the other way, I mean, there was cracks. There were cracks in the armor, cracks in that foundation that you could see, happening. It just reared their ugly head at the wrong time. And now the season's over, and you got to get ready for 24. And I don't know. That's what people say. It's basketball season over in Duncan.
Yeah. Break out the layup lines for sure. Another great round 2 of action, Jerel. I do want to say, like we did last week, excuse me. Appreciate all these seniors, that have graduated now that we really enjoy covering. Guys, I wrote down a couple of names. We're going through it: McDaniel and Douglas and Fling and Thompson, Brown, Snyder, Marshall, Gray, Stone, Hoover, Bird, Gary, Washington, Stevenson, Rivera, Scott, Cusack, Sanders, Zachary, Spires. I mean, tons of great players that we've had a lot of fun covering for the past 2-3 years now. Hate to see their time in, but I'm sure they're off to bigger and better things. And if you guys are still in the playoffs, certainly enjoy it. I mean, each week could be your last at this point in time. I mean, everybody's a really good football team, so not going to be many cakewalks, I think, from this point forward. But appreciate those guys, and best of luck to the guys who are still playing. But as always, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, etc. at Movin Chains, MOVINCHAINS. MovinChains.com is our website. Podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. We do our weekly preview show, 7 o'clock on Tuesday nights on Facebook and YouTube. Going to be a lot of fun talking about round 3 this week. Going to be a lot of big games to break down for sure. We do a recap show, comes out on Sundays, podcast flat platforms for that one. Then our Friday night spaces on Twitter/X, basically a live scoreboard show. Get different players and coaches and competitors to hop in and talk about their game. Feel free to join us and request to talk. Love to hear from you guys and your game as well. Jerel teased it earlier. Andrew Webb interview coming out this week. Strom Thurmond head coach, probably Thursday, but just keep an eye on our social pages for that. We'll certainly post about it. Should be a lot of fun to catch up with Coach Webb. His Rebels are rolling and have a big matchup against Gray Collegiate here in round 3. And of course, Jerel, get your Movin the Chains merch. We got hats, we got hoodies, we got toboggan/beanies, all different colors, Richardson hats, Yupong hats, gray hoodies, white hoodies, gray toboggan, black toboggan, gray hat, black hat, whatever you want. Great stuff. Pictures on our social media page, mtcgear.sc@gmail.com. Email that if you have any questions. You can send us a message to order whatever you want to do. Love to have you support us and help to grow the brand and get the word out there more. But Jerel, any other thoughts here on this round 2 show as we wrap up for the day?
Yeah, man, it was a lot of fun. Round 2 was we got done early on Friday, so it was cool to be able to catch some of these games on the radio, keep up with them on social and things like that. Like Kevin mentioned, get your MTC gear, support the brand. Also, get your Folly Row gear. Christmas is coming up. Be sure to hit both of hit them up, hit us up as well to secure some presents for loved ones during the holidays. If you see us, please, I know some of your teams are out of the playoffs. My team's out of the playoffs. If you're at these games, come see us. So come let us know. I think we're going to be at I really think we're going to be in the Midlands this week, depending on what happens. But pretty excited about what happened round 2. Already looking forward to round 3. Catch us on Tuesday. We had 97 live viewers for the first time. We're trying to go over 100. So if you're listening to this, check us out. We usually get started around 7:15, Facebook Live, YouTube Live. So we'd love to have you. Jump in, do some comments. We need 500 comments this week.
Whew, that'd be fun. That'll be a lot of fun. But for Jerel Hendricks, I'm Kevin Thomas. Moving the Chains, as always, brought to you by Moving the Chains, always brought to you by Moving the Chains, of course, Jerel.
Yeah, there we go.
By Founders Federal Credit Union. This has been our round 2 recap show brought to you by Folly Row. And we'll talk to you guys soon.